Let's switch gears now, Dr. Cruz. We still have a lot to cover now, and we're talking about fresh test for Ruto as IMF urges new tax policies to unlock loans. Global Lender holds 5-day discussion with government and economic reforms. Stringent conditions on IMF financing program have led to citizen protests. But there was a proposal by John Mbadi, the National Treasury Secretary, Cabinet Secretary, 25% proposed corporation tax by Treasury Cabinet Secretary John Mbadi in the next budget from the current 30%. But we know that IMF would like that to be increased and more other taxes. But yesterday, John Mbadi was expected to appear in Senate. He did not. This is what Edwin Sifuna had to say.
The question that I was supposed to put to CS Mbadi is a question that is over a year old. It has taken him less than 2 weeks to become a proper Kenya Kwanza cabinet secretary who has no respect for this house. Honorable Chair, we cannot allow this because we want to engage with these CSs. He cannot tell us, and I want to tell John Mbadi that this is unacceptable. This is unacceptable, totally unacceptable, when he has to show respect for this house. And in fact, it is worse that he was a member of parliament. If he had just been plucked from the wilderness like some of the other people I see, maybe we would excuse him. But he is a member of parliament. He has even finished 2 weeks. Honorable John Mbadi must be called to order. This is not the John Mbadi I knew. I don't know what they have done to him.
When he wants to leave it on record and say that John Mbadi has become a proper Kenya Kwanza minister who has no respect for parliament, I cannot allow him to do that, Mr. Speaker. Because otherwise, you reduce a very valid point to a partisan debate that is useless.
Nyikal, first of all, is there an internal implosion of some of the ODM brigades who are not happy with the ones who are selected to go to cabinet, or is this just an enslaving situation where cabinet secretaries simply don't want to be held?
You know, remember that when these people who are were holding senior positions in ODM were appointed into the cabinet, they had to relinquish or they had to leave their positions. I think once that was done, then official link with ODM ceased. And we can naturally, humanly, there is still a relationship. We work them with the parties. They are there. We can relate to that extent. But I wouldn't say there is an ill feeling from what Senator is saying, Sifuna is saying. But I would expect, and I expect, that it would not be right that if now a cabinet secretary who was in ODM does something that normally would not be acceptable, then now we now say, okay, that's fine, he was one of us. In fact, good practice, in my view, we would ask them, you know, you are there, you still you still carry our history with you, and the country would expect that you would do better than others because of where you came from. ODM is known as the party who stands for the welfare of the people, the rule of law, and therefore your history should follow you if you go in there. Unless you go in there and there are some people who now put you into, change you like Senator Sifuna is saying. Yeah. So I wouldn't expect that, I wouldn't say that what Sifuna's outrage is because of feeling of internal friction. But it just feels that this should carry our image better.
Okay.
Yeah. No, and it would be in principle. Yeah. For us in ODM, if we are still the opposition legally, as I know it.
You're in government.
You're in government.
You're in government.
Broad-based. He's saying legal government is the same part.
No, you are lawyers, legally.
Yeah.
Legally.
You're in
as lawyers.
By your conduct, you're in government.
Yeah, legally. Yeah. And I still think it will be expected that we have to point out what is wrong in government, even if it comes from the hands of the people who are once with us in ODM.
Are you in government as Nyikal?
Nyikal is in opposition. What position am I holding in government?
No, he's at the door. He's looking.
Okay.
Trevor.
What position am I holding in government?
Yeah.
If you ask me what position I'm holding in the party, I'm a member of the party, I'm a member of parliament, I'm in the health committee as a member of ODM. Now, if you look at the government, the three arms of government, yes,
In the
I mean
legislature.
the legislature.
Yeah.
So to that extent, I mean government. But if now we are saying government means executive,
Yeah.
I'll definitely say I'm not in the executive.
You know, Trevor, when I listened to Senator Sifuna, honestly, I don't believe in witchcraft. But I think when it comes to Kenyan politics, witchcraft is real. Because I don't understand the 360-degree transformation of Mbadi, who we've had debates here, criticizing government, now even refusing to actually obey just a summons from the Senate. But, you know, there's a bigger problem here. And I can see Professor Nikal and, of course, Agenda are struggling to defend this government. We are now confirming that...
I'm not trying, you are struggling. I'm not trying.
Yes.
You know, Dr. Nikal is at the, you know, at the door.
Yeah.
Agenda is already inside the Yakwasa. So him is peeping and wondering, should I go in or should I not go in? Because that's the struggle that ODM has right now. Now, I think it speaks of a bigger problem in this country, the pretense of the political class. You see, on one hand, because you're not in government, the moment you get in, actually, you forget about everything. You forget about representation of the people that sent you to parliament. You forget about oversighting that government. You even forget about passing legislation with a common good to the people that sent you there. Now, there is really no difference between ODM and Kenya Kwanza. They come a long way. You know, that's why you see Professor Agenda will heavily defend Kenya Kwanza, because he's already inside. Dr. Nikal is just, you know, wondering whether she should go in or not. So they are one and the same. So actually what ODM has done, they have actually killed the whole concept of opposition politics in Kenya, because they have allowed themselves to be compromised by a failing government. I mean, from all the issues that we've spoken about, the failure of education, failure of political promises from 2022, the brutalization of our young people at the universities and whatever, you know, they have joined that regime. So they're actually part and parcel of the brutalizing regime. So today, the only opposition I see in Kenya are the people of Kenya. Because if you talk to the people on the ground, they will just tell you things are bad, you know.
In simple terms.
In simple terms. Just tell you things are not working.
Okay.
I mean, Trevor, may I like to share real examples. I'm sure Professor Dr. Nikal and Professor Agenda will confirm this, that in their messages today, people ask them for money almost every other minute.
That's true.
Yeah? For basic things. You know, food,
yeah.
education, health, you know, name it, everything. So the question really is, what is working for this nation of ours today? You know, because the situation is becoming desperate, right from the violation of the rule of law, disobedience of court orders, you know. So, I mean, things are just falling apart,
yeah.
You know.
Okay.
And I'm almost asking Kenyans now, we should read back Chinua Achebe's Things Fall Apart.
Yeah.
Because the center cannot hold anymore.
Prof, let me hear what Prof has to say about this. So, Mbadi faces a very difficult task. In fact, the IMF's insistence on new tax policies is particularly pressing following the eruption that we saw. How will he balance this?
Trevor, first of all, let me just also add something to the summon by Senate before I respond to your concerns on the IMF and the new framework. We summon cabinet secretaries to Senate every Wednesday morning, and they respond to a raft of questions. Yesterday we had CS Rhodes that appeared before us, and we went on question time up to 1:15. CS Mbadi did not appear, and that attracted the anger of the Secretary General of ODM, Edwin Sifuna, who is a robust debater in Senate. And I think that for Senator Sifuna, this is an opportunity to have a go at his former chair at ODM. And I think most unfairly, because Mbadi did not just fail to turn up to Senate. Mbadi was engaged in an important meeting, and he notified Senate that he would not attend. And I think Mbadi is one of those fresh ministers who is a performer. He is a performer like most of his colleagues. And I know that Mbadi has not only brought freshness in fiscal administration at Treasury, but even the policies that you see that the IMF proposes to unlock certain loans, because I think the management of the fiscal space in Treasury largely depends on what we have, either balancing between external, internal borrowing and ensuring that we are able to meet our budget so that we don't have deficits. We have a plug into the budget deficits each financial year. And that is what Mbadi is doing. And I think that in some of the undertakings that the CS does, as Senate, we must also bend back and allow him to engage in some of those important functions. Because there are CSs who've been summoned to Senate severally and have missed without explaining why they don't come. I think it was courteous for Mbadi, as he did, to at least he communicated, but also
so you think Sifuna was unfair? The
importance of the meeting that he had, I think also dictated for was understandable. That's why I didn't even speak in Senate on the Mbadi, because I know that this is one minister who will transform the management of the Treasury to achieve for Kenyans. And I think Okuru says that everyone says it is hard. Of course, we as politicians, you'll have demands from your constituents every now and again. And when you get those demands, you deal with the ones that you can and move on, because it is not easy to be a politician. True. But to be a professional at the same time.
But are we enslaved by the shackles of IMF?
Now, what Mbadi is trying to unshackle, because I think the shackles of MF, the frameworks are there, we must not only debunk financial management from a new approach, and that is the fresh eye that Mbadi provides, but also unshackle the gimmick of financial slavery.
I have a question, Trevor.
How do we unshackle that gimmick? We must ensure that we get new loans from out there and avoid the enslavement that we have previously had that will attach some of our crucial public infrastructure because of debt. We don't want to sell our airports. We do not want to sell our railway system. We do not want to sell our ports. Trevor, we must ensure that we get loans that are affordable. And that is what Mbadi is doing. This is a great man.
I have a question.
Support him.
I have a question.
Maybe Prof. Support Mbadi.
No, let's see.
I have a question. Maybe Doc can also answer this question. Yes. When would we learn as a country? Because the history of association with the IMF anywhere in the world is that actually they are just predators. They will just impoverish that country. So when will we learn our lesson?
Dr.
Disassociate with this IMF.
Yeah, I think the issue, I'll also start with the basic principle. Now that there are four people in the cabinet who were once in ODM, is it expected now that the whole ODM structure will not say anything, will not point out anything wrong with the government? That goes against a much bigger principle, because even the Kenya Kwanza MPs, with the structure of government we have, Parliament actually oversight the executive, quite regardless of their party positions. And I think as constitutional lawyer, a senior lawyer, that stands. It would even be wrong. It would still wrong, even the Kenya Kwanza MPs, to actually let everything pass in Parliament because they are supporting the executive. That's not the role. So I still will hold that as members of ODM, if something is done which is right, we will support it. If it is wrong, we'll point out. Now, in the issue of Mbadi, I'm very happy that now he's actually resisting IMF. They're asking for 30% corporate tax. Mbadi is saying 25. That is what I actually expect of Mbadi, and that has now that he has also told us that actually Mbadi indicated why he didn't come to the Senate. Again, that is something we look at. But I've not talked to Sifuna and say, if that was the case, why the outrage?
Yeah.
Well, Senator Ugenda seems to have more inside information, so he's explaining that there was an opportunity indicating some kind of implosion, as you are saying. I don't want to go that direction.
No, Ugenda is government.
Yeah,
so
well,
there's a lot of information.
Yeah, it's government. So it's already,
but you're in the same party.
Yeah. So, well, he was there long before. I think with Mbadi, on this one, I'll give them the benefit of doubt.
Okay.
There's in the information that he had something which held him back, and he gave that information to the Senate. I would have expected Senator Sifuna to take that to consideration. If you listen to Senator Sifuna without hearing what Professor Ugenda was saying, you'd think that Minister Mbadi didn't even say where he was, he just missed to come.
Yeah.
That would not be acceptable. If he did give an explanation, fine.
Okay.
Now, IMF, the whole of this thing, the World Bank, International Monetary Fund, they actually started after the Second World War. And I think when the imperialists realized that actually the structure of the world is changing, the colonies are actually going to be independent, as they were relinquishing political domination, they decided to remain with economic domination. And I may be wrong, I'm not an economist. I always see IMF and World Bank in that context, because I've even heard that actually the rate at which they give loans may not be the same for countries in Africa as other countries. So the Honorable Mbadi's effort to actually go against them is what we expect. At that time, on that, we will actually support him. That is what we expect. When they went there, we said, okay, now we have some people we know, some people we have dealt with, some people with integrity, we will expect. So when I caught, I think this is something we know. I'll take you back to 2003 in the Kibaki era. I think I remember this issue of tax and revenue. We were actually at a workshop, I was PS then, in Naivasha, and we actually said, is it possible to raise taxes? I think it was Waweru who was in charge of taxes. And the thing that was agreed, broaden the tax base, don't increase the taxes, don't hurt the people, collect the taxes, improve the efficiency. And it actually came. And the idea we had at that time, try to get us off this borrowing from IMF and the and now I don't know what is happening inside this government. Maybe Senator Ugenda will tell us. But there must be some lack of sincerity at a very deep level that stops things that sound good from happening. That is what happens in life. If what you are saying deeply you don't believe in and you don't act with it, then the results will not be the same. So I'm wondering why these good things we are hearing, why are they not coming out? Maybe now that people like John Mbadi are there, we will now get more information. That's why it's coming.
And speaking of lack of sincerity, Dr. Gura, I want to bring you on that. So a different conversation. A lot is going on in the country. There's the Adani deal. There's also the people on strike. There's the new IG, police brutality. But there's also another conversation in the Mount Kenya region. Is this a true concern against the deputy president? Because we've seen several members of parliament say now our kingpin is the interior CS. Yesterday, more than 300 MCAs did the same thing, including the injury in Cheke. Are we seeing diversionary tactics here, or is this how politics plays out?
I think first of all, we are betraying the constitutional promise. When we did this constitution, we wanted to separate the technocrats from politics. So what the Jubilee administration has done, and now the Kenya Kwanza, sorry. Kenya Kwanza has done. No, it's just slip of the tongue. So what they have done actually is that they have now brought in politics back into service delivery. And that's why you can hear this sad story about Kindiki, who is a serving cabinet secretary. He really ought to steer himself away from politics. Now, I also don't agree with the DP Gachagua when he keeps on talking about Murima or Mlima. As a deputy president, Gachagua is actually potentially a president in this country. Should Ruto today decide that he's had enough, he's resigning, Gachagua is, will step in as our president. So it's so bad for him to keep on talking about a region where he comes from, even if he loves his people. But he now needs to embrace the fact that he's a national figure by dint of being the deputy president of the Republic of Kenya and potentially a president. So those kind of talks is what's actually, driving a wedge between the peoples of this country. It's not uniting the country. When you keep on talking about your region, you're disenfranchising other people. So what will we people from the lakeside and, northern Kenya and the coast view him as a deputy president? So this is not even necessary. In fact, Trevor, this time back I suggested to you that maybe we need to talk about the soul of our nation. What really is the character of our country? Today, is it really a priority in this country to speak about, who is the kingpin in our region, as opposed to delivering some of those services that Kenyans desperately need? Jobs, health, education, security, opportunities that were promised in 2022. Nobody's even talking about them anymore. In fact, we no longer hear about the wheelbarrow, manenos. We don't hear more about Mama Mboga and, the kawaida person. The bottom-up approach, whatever that was, it's now a mirage. We don't even hear about it anymore, So political lying in this country has become a culture. And you can see this being perpetuated by people in leadership positions. Especially Ojenda's newfound home,
He's here to respond, so he'll talk about it.
Yeah, but you see, this culture really has to stop. I mean, how do we progress this country moving forward? The leadership really must be honest to the people. So this thing of dividing Kenyans, we are from this region, we are from that region, so what?
Okay.
Kenya is a unitary state, and we must be seen to be uniting the people of Kenya. In fact, it's now confirming the fact that actually we are not even a nation state, strictly speaking. We are just a conglomerate of ethnic identities that found ourselves within a geographical location we now call Kenya. But to talk of Kenya as a nation state, I think is a far-fetched idea.
Okay.
And the leadership is actually contributing largely to dividing the people of Kenya when they speak the way they speak.
Prof, are there legitimate concerns, or is this just the usual political selfishness that we are used to?
Let me just address the nation state. That takes me back to the 1932 Montevideo Convention that defined what nation states are made up of, sharing identities, sharing values. I think that defines perhaps what Kurwa Court team put in Article 10. That we have
even the preamble from the
principles that define us. We, the people, under Article 1, are driven by common values, a common vision, a common strategy, and we want to achieve something as a state. And that is why we are Kenya, and not Luo or Turkana or Kikuyu. We don't have these small ethnicities. We're meant to gel together and form this nation. So it's on point on that question. Article 131 of the Constitution that speaks to the presidency, and therefore the executive, the presidency and the deputy presidency, is seen as a force that is meant to unite the country and speak to the country as a whole. And that is why the share system could not hold for long. The share system collapsed on its back, and we adopted a broad-based system where every community or grouping is now in government in one pot. And that is when perhaps the paradigm shifted. And that is why perhaps the DP should also change tact and move away from Rema and embrace the nation. And I think probably he's doing that. What we see in Mount Kenya is a concern that my very good friend and colleague, Professor Kithure Kindiki, has now been pushed to be the spokesman of the mountain, shows a simmering political content in certain groupings within the mountain. In fact, I would say it is an odoriferous saga.
This legal fight.
It was apt to use that term because you have the enduring Cheke supporting Kindiki, who is a good man, by the way, a gentleman. And you have now MCAs, and then you have other small splinter groups. With the DP Gachagua having 6 members of parliament, it is not a good sign for the DP, and I think that there's need for unity going forward. It's a make or break, and I think we are getting to a tipping point that may lead to the activation of certain provisions of the Constitution. And we don't want to see in this country Article 149 read with 144 and 145 brought into a test. That would divide this country. And then
we already divided. That
testing of political weight, muscle, will take away the concerns of the people. We have too many things to deal with. We do not want to see another crisis that would lead to some motions being brought to Parliament and people jostling for strength. Remember, the removal of a deputy president is a process that must be undertaken by both houses, the National Assembly and Senate. And we do not want to see that. But my fear is that I'm seeing that certain people may try a few things. Let us speak in one voice. Let us unite this country because we are one.
Njikala, are we losing sight of the most important issues by talking about this rift, or is this a genuine concern?
You know, we are losing sight of the most important thing, and that is the distinction between politics and service delivery. People sometimes want to think that they're the same. Politics is a perception, and that perception is aimed at getting votes and getting to power. It relates not very directly with reality. Service delivery is reality. It deals with the physical things of the world, the road, the water, the health, the medicine, the food. These things they are physical. And if you don't go by the physical laws of nature, they fail. So what you are seeing now is we've never really stopped campaigning after the elections. We are still in politics, looking at the numbers, and that is when you come with regions, whether it is Marema, Melema, Lake, Rake, Nini, you know.
It's all about politics.
It is about politics and getting votes. I always ask, when you have got the votes and you've got the power and you are in the seat, what did you want to do to the people? And you continue with things that stop you from doing it. You can't campaign forever. So the Marema thing is actually about holding the vote. People are looking at 2027. And you know, the thing about life also, the truth also never forgives. From what we heard at the beginning, when they wanted to pick a deputy president or running mate, we have no evidence that actually there was preference for Kindiki and that somehow the current DP got over it. Now, if that reality was there...
And that he got 1 vote.
And if that reality was there, that is the reality of nature that has refused to go. Had we listened to that reality then,
we would not be here now.
We would not be here. We would have sorted that matter. But somehow it is taking us back, and I don't agree with somebody at the level of a deputy president overemphasizing, even when we were in Nyanza, stating that charity begins at home. You know, you can't use that. People want to see you as belonging. When I'm in Migori, and I see a leader at the level of a DP or a president, I want to have a sense of belonging. But if the thing I first hear from him or her is that the charity begins at home, I know I'm not in that home. So it is very divisive. So to that extent, they are persisting with the politics. But what I'll tell the Kenya Kwanza team, it doesn't matter what they think, what they say, if they do not bring down that politics and focus on service delivery, nature is going to defy them, university is going to fail, health is going to fail, everything will fail until they bring that thing down. and now start focusing in. When you focus on service delivery, suddenly tribes and things disappear. When kids can't go to school because of the banding, it is a cross. It's a uniting problem. Yeah, that brings us together. When health services are not working, like I'm now worried about the SHA, I'm hearing now, even there they're bringing politics. Nature is going to shame them. So I hear those things. I'm very concerned. The DP must have a unite. You know, if you're a DP and you say or a DP or a president and you say things will be shared equally, you have also taken care of your area. But if you're saying, I must think of my area, the message you are sending is that when you are sharing, people must be careful because I'm going to take for my area alone first and then think of you.
Let's see, there's a lot of feedback here, but we ran out of time. So let me take some quick feedback, then I'll come to all of you for closing remarks really briefly. Each and every one of you will have about a minute for closing remarks. Let's bring that up and see what you're saying. Online, a lot of it coming through. Let's read as much as we can. Citizen TV Kenya is the hashtag Daybreak. Sawe says, we are still far from police reforms. Start with the basics, better housing, fair pay and dignity. Many officers face personal struggles and frustrations with nothing left to lose. We rely on them, but fail to care for their well-being. Reform starts with respect. Discipline says it is, that's Disciple, says it is absurd for Professor Ojienda to claim that Masengeli is a law-abiding citizen after disobeying 7 court orders. Sir Nixon says corruption happens because there is impunity. Tumejionea. That's the reason why corruption is widespread at all levels, from the junior officers who ask for a bribe on the road to those who hold prominent positions. Agumba says, my Senator OJ must stop supporting impunity as shown by acting IG by all means. We need to stop this idea of defending a wrong thing. What is wrong, whether done by the president or whoever. Meanwhile, Senator Sifuna is just confusing our eyes to feel he isn't in government, but we know. Sam says the only way to reform the police in Kenya is to retrain them under new curriculum. Change prerequisites for recruitment from dental formula, height, weight, and sight to psychometric requirements. Some of them are mental. Lazaro says, don't concentrate too much with the Mlima Kenya feuds. It can be just their normal diversion tactics. Otherwise, Honorable Sifuna should give Mbadi some time or sigh of relief. I think that's what he went to say. Mbadi is just 2 months old in the office. Rem Butia says the current moment presents a critical opportunity to revisit and deepen police reforms in Kenya. A key area of focus should be ensuring fairness in police recruitment, deployment, transfers, and promotions. Dr. Nyikal, I'll come with you, starting with you, closing remarks. Maybe you can talk about SHA because I know you're in the health committee.
We would have talked about SHA in a deeper way and with more time.
Yes.
As a closing remark, I'm very concerned that when we come to 1st of October, I'm not quite sure what is going to be new. So that when we go to 2nd, what will be new that was not there on 1st? That is the question I would put to the ministry. That when they're telling people we are starting on 1st, they must be very clear what is starting on 1st and tell the people so that on 2nd, they go to hospitals, they go to make claims, they see the difference that they were told is starting on 1st. Very important in implementation of things to be clear what you are starting. Overall, I will say once again, this overemphasis on politics and looking at 2027 and not really focusing on service delivery, having policies and ideas that are good, that are not given serious technical attention, and therefore they're failing, really must stop. My view, let's slow down a bit on this politicking for 2027, do service delivery. A good service delivery is actually a very big campaign tool, much bigger than people think. And that is where we should put our emphasis.
All right. Dr. Guru?
For me, I think I would say that, again, just to support what Dr. Nyikala said, there's too much of emphasis on politics as opposed to actually honoring promises of the last election. Of course, you see that the executive is actually trying to compromise any other independent institution. You see, Parliament has already been compromised when Akina Ojenda and the rest joined Kenya Kwanza, and therefore they killed the idea of opposition. So Parliament is gone. So we don't have Parliament. The executive, the Parliament is actually an appendage of the executive today as we speak. Perhaps there are exceptions like Dr. Nyikal, who can speak, from a general. I mean, for every general, there is always an exception. Yeah. So I believe Dr. Nyikal is, although he is staring at the house from the door, he's wondering whether to go in or not. Yeah. But I think for me, going forward, to be honest with you, we need to change our politics. And it's unfortunate that the Azimio la Umoja, one wing of the Azimio la Umoja killed the Gen Z dream and revolt in this country. One thing that I'm happy about this current administration is that they actually helped us end the fake dynastic claim in this country, that governance and leadership in this country must come from certain quarters, certain families, certain region. William Ruto, that is his achievement, by the way, and we have to thank him for that, for at least removing. But although he is also a surrogate of those dynasties, but he provides a political opportunity for Kenya to be able to transition into the new crop of leadership. Okay. And I'm hoping that Kenyans' eyes are now open. They can critically criticize this regime constructively, because he associated himself with the Oloi Poloi, but now he has actually even betrayed them. So I think Kenya is actually, for me, in a transition into new leadership. So that in 2027, whether they campaign right now or not, I think 2027 is up for grabs. Even you, Trevor, can be our next president. Or Ojenda.
Don't take Dr. Ekuru seriously.
Why?
President Ruto will get a second term. This government is on the right track. There are a few distractions here and there. I think the education sector will be sorted. CS Julius Ongamba is up to the task. But there's need to ensure that we have lecturers and other union members back to class and to providing services through measures that will ensure that secretaries are paid and salaries, at least definite salaries. Let lecturers tone down, let us be concerned about our children. That's one. Number two, Trevor, just by way of conclusion, this country needs to pull together, and I agree with Dr. Njikal. Let us look at the questions or the issues that put us together. Let us not divide this country through sectarian, divisive, individual, and other interests that only go to split this country into sections. Let us pull together in a direction that will make us stronger as a country, so that when we have things like strikes, we can deal with them united. Dr. Nyikal and I are now in government. and let him talk for himself.
Finally, there is a confession.
Whatever terms he's using, that he's watching, I think Baba has spoken. ODM is in government, and whatever Sifuna says.
But have you forgiven Baba now?
Whatever Sifuna says, we know Baba.
After you're being prosecuted for joining Kenya Kwanza, have you forgiven?
I think that is behind us. I think that was simply a demonstration of discontent then by ODM. But of course, Ekuru, that I mean well for the party. I mean well for this country, and I think our decision, we've been vindicated. Nyikal has moved to where I am. The other day, my national chair, Gladys Wanga, said that we moved too early. I think they have come to where we are.
So they are admitting they have compromised the opposition.
Let me say this. I love the right of the class. Let me say this finally. I think let us look to uniting this country and ensuring that we support the president and the current party leader, Professor Nyong'o, has spoken and said ODM must support government. And I expect nothing less from Dr. Nyikal when he says development.
Nyong'o is not the party leader.
Whenever I try to do that in my county, I used to, my political casualty is Donglogirati. Whenever I try to do that, they tell me no, party first. I tell them, let us be concerned about the people. I'm glad today he has said, let us deliver to our people.
Nyong'o is not the party leader.
The party says, we support President Ruto. If you say otherwise, I will report you.
Okay.
No, let me just say,
Nyong'o is not the party leader.
Ojenda is actually a better government spokesman than the official government spokesman.
That's Mwaura.
It's better than Mwaura.
Leave it there, gentlemen.
But
Thank you so much. We've run out of time. Yes.
Wherever you are,
Yes.
there are certain things that are good for the people. You must say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Agree.
So whether you are in ODM, wherever you are. So me, I still am an ODM member.
Okay.
What is wrong in government?
Although at the door,
All right,
at the doorstep.
Thank you so much. Leave it down to the nation. Coming up next is Cooking Tips. Thank you so much for watching.